We are back to talk about how to avoid legal battles and why families end up in court. This takes the information that we discussed in the last section about why families don't get along and the importance of talking about the elephant in the room so that you do not get into these situations that we are about to discuss. Let's get started. We'll go through the normal housekeeping and we'll continue. I use the term elderly parent or elderly parents for the person for whom you provide care. Outline for this module is in the course materials. Print the slide handouts, follow along, fill in the blanks for the dots on the slides. The objectives of why families end up in court. The objective actually is to not end up in court. At the end of why parents end up in court, you should be able to identify potential issues to minimize family disagreements, recognize how blended families can complicate caregiving situations, create proactive plans to avoid legal issues. Families become involved in legal battles for many reasons that we discussed in the prior part. Sibling rivalry, dependence, entitlement, inheritance, and power of attorney abuse. These issues can be avoided or at least minimized when discussions happen within families and proper planning happens in advance of a crisis, in advance of healthcare needs of elderly parents. Because we can't predict the future and we can't predict how situations might change. Let's talk about Peter Falk's law. I don't know how many of you remember Peter Falk. This is actually a photo of him. Years ago, he was a movie star in a show called Columbo. Columbo was this bumbling detective, the picture that you see here, who always wore this rumpled raincoat. And he was quite adorable. He smoked cigars. He would go and he would interview people suspected of crimes. And of course, he always caught the person. But before he would leave, after asking a line of questions, he would scratch his head like that with a cigar in his hand. And he would say, before I leave, just one more question. I have one more question. There's just one thing I can't figure out. And that one thing would always be the thing that caught the criminal. God bless Peter Falk. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Throughout his disease, his daughter, named Catherine, wanted to visit him. He had a second marriage. His second wife attempted to stop Catherine, who was his daughter, from visiting him. Catherine was a pretty sharp lady. She refused to be intimidated by her stepmother. She loved her father so much. She wanted to see him. She went to court. Catherine went to court, and the result was Peter Falk's law. On this slide, I have a website to Catherine's website. It's called CatherineFalkOrganization.org. She did an amazing thing. There's a law out there now called Peter Falk's Law. And this happened at the time that you might have heard of other celebrity issues going on. Glenn Campbell had a similar issue. Casey Kasem had a similar issue. Many celebrities ended up in these situations because of second marriages and blended families. Peter Falk's law makes sure that if you are a child and you're in a situation where a parent is guardian or a parent has control or a step-parent or family member, you have the right to visit your elderly parent based on the prior relationship, based on the fact that you are the child, based on the fact that you had a relationship with that person before they acquired Alzheimer's or dementia. And even if they can't remember you, it doesn't matter. You have a right to visit. Most of the states have passed Peter Falk's law. You can go on to Catherine's website and double check. It's ongoing. It's an amazing thing. It was very necessary, very sad that it had to happen. But these things happen within families, which is why I'm bringing them up. As you know, I never want you to be surprised about the unexpected situations that can happen. Relationships between adult children can get off balanced if the appointment of one child in a legal role, like a guardian, a conservator, a medical or financial power of attorney, happens. That can lead families to court because the other children who weren't appointed disagree with your mom or dad's selection to appoint you. Or you might disagree with the selection of your sibling that an elderly parent appointed. What happens is the disagreeing children initiate court proceedings to have the appointed child removed from authority. These disagreements also happen when persons outside the family or professional is appointed. I had many family members who tried to get me removed. These issues do have to go to court. Factual evidence has to be provided why the person who was appointed should be removed, because credence is given to the fact that when that elderly person drafted those documents or made that appointment, they were of sound mind and they knew what they were doing. The other concern in these relationships between adult children is a concern by children over medical or financial abuse. The involvement of outside parties, and this happens like churches or other groups, can become an issue. I have had church groups that took advantage of my clients before I was appointed power of attorney, where the church was making the person donate $200 a week or $300 a week, or put the church in their will. The involvement of these outside parties, it can become a real issue. Abuse is more likely when estate plans are changed. So power of attorney, estate, personal rep, when those are changed after somebody has a diagnosis of memory loss or dementia, it's very questionable. Worries also exist from family members about new people showing up in the life of an elderly person. A new person might be an in-home caregiver. It might be another individual who appears interested in money. Believe it or not, I have seen attorneys write themselves into the wills of estate plans. That is a conflict of interest. It's illegal, shouldn't be done. But people who are able to take advantage of the elderly don't have a lot of conscience. They're more interested in the money, less interested in the person. And if there aren't family members watching out for that elderly person, it more likely happens. Let's talk about will and estate contests. More things that you think probably never happen. Will or estate contests may happen after the death of a parent. I've known adult children and family members who felt they didn't receive their fair share of the estate and who issued will contests, and I'll share a story. I had a client, his name was Christopher. He was an engineer most of his life, hardworking, was in the military, he was a veteran. He, in his later life, had dementia related to health issues. And at the time that I was appointed guardian and another gentleman was appointed conservator, we met with Christopher because he had a substantial amount of money saved. And we met with him and asked what he wanted to do for his will. He was very clear. He picked 4 charities. He picked a veterans association and some other charities that throughout his life he had been involved in. He wrote letters to the charity saying, you know, when I pass away, my estate will be divided into 4 portions. You will receive this. And I'm doing this because I was involved with you throughout my life. We went through a very extensive estate planning process. After Christopher died, about a year after he died, I got a call from an attorney saying, we need to come have you testify in court. Christopher's nephew, who never had a good relationship with Christopher, who Christopher never spoke about positively, wanted Christopher's estate. This gentleman was a well-to-do dentist. He didn't need Christopher's money, but he wanted the money. 3 of the charities gave in. 3 of the charities said, we're not going to spend money to battle this. Take the money. The 4th one, thank goodness, stood up. I spent an hour in the courtroom testifying about the day that we were there with Christopher, the day that we talked about who he wanted his money to go to, the fact that he was in sound mind, he knew what he was doing, and the fact that this charity deserved that money, that his nephew should not be entitled to the money, and in my opinion, nor should the nephew have been entitled to any other of that money. These are things that happen, and if you're a family member, you want to make sure to document conversations. These days, people are actually doing video wills so that the day the will is drafted, it's recorded. There's never any question about anyone being in sound mind the day that that will was drafted. It's crazy that we have to go to these extents these days, but when family members exist who don't have a positive interest or who may be more interested in money, these are the things that we have to do. These are the extents that we have to go to protect our loved ones. So consider this for your will. Consider this for the will of parents, video wills, witnesses, competency evaluations to prove that they are competent at the time that that will is issued. And also, even more important, that that will cannot be changed under any circumstances without advising these 3 people, without having an attorney present. It can't be modified. Putting in those protections avoids issues that happen after death when families don't get along and when brothers and sisters may be more interested in money than anything else. Proactive discussions and planning, I can't emphasize it enough. Elderly parents can avoid the type of family issues that we're talking about by having ongoing legal discussions. The problem is many of them don't even know about making an estate plan. They don't know how important medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney, personal rep of the estate, trustees, trusts, and wills are. Holding family meetings to talk about these issues, the elephants in the room, make it clear to everybody that a plan is going to be in place to prioritize the care of the elderly parent. It's good to be fully transparent. It's a proactive measure, especially if professionals are going to be appointed. As we talked, estate documents with special provisions can minimize families from going to court. We can do video wills. We can take other precautions. You want to hire the right type of attorney. Don't use a family law attorney. Don't use a divorce attorney. Don't use an attorney who's one of your friends because they'll do this for free. Those are bad ideas. Hire an elder law, probate, or estate planning attorney with experience. It's the best possible situation for creating an estate plan. How do you find these people? You can find these attorneys by searching for NAELA, N-A-E-L-A, National Association of Elder Law Attorneys, or CELA, C-E-L-A, Certified Elder Law Attorney. These attorneys that are members of these organizations, they have extensive experience to guide families in creating estate plans. They also can litigate contested situations. A proactive estate plan, it ensures that elderly parents will receive care, they'll have oversight, and they'll avoid issues by ill-meaning family members or others. Let's talk for a few minutes about adult protective services. Adult protective services agencies are in every state, and they're normally administered at the local or county level. So I normally call them county adult protective services. That's what they are here in Colorado. 2/3 of states place their APS departments, that's the acronym for Adult Protective Services, within the Department of Social Services. For the other states, they may be within a state department of aging or the State Department of Health. All states now have mandatory reporting laws to protect the elderly from abuse. Mandatory reporting laws mean that professionals, like me and others, have to report to the police or adult protective services Concerns about persons or family situations where the elderly may be taken advantage of or where they may be unable to care for themselves. I've actually had to report some of my client families, and I felt bad, but it was the right thing to do because an investigation needed to occur. Doctors, healthcare professionals, neighbors, and family members, you can be reporters. Know that it's not up to you to investigate the concerns of abuse. You don't have to prove anything. It's the responsibility of law enforcement and the Adult Protective Service workers to investigate and confirm or deny abuse. You also might be in a situation where APS has contacted you to ask about care for someone or a parent. Don't ignore the phone call. Don't ignore the contact. Respond and participate. I know some families who have negative opinions or worries about working with APS, and this is mostly because they didn't participate, or mostly because they ignored the fact that an elderly parent couldn't take care of themselves and they didn't step in to help. APS completes investigations. They have the insight and the experience to determine if a situation is harmful. Some family members have this opinion that APS will take over. They only take over when family members refuse to become involved, or they fail to understand the risks of a care situation for an elderly parent, or if you or your brother or sister has a criminal record. You cannot possibly be appointed to take care of the money of your elderly parents. If you have a family situation with potential abuse or siblings that you think are taking advantage of an elderly parent, and you don't want to go through the legal system, make a report to APS and the police, who will investigate. Adult Protective Services is a stopgap for elder abuse and neglect. If it needs then to proceed to court hearings or legal proceedings, Adult Protective Services will facilitate that. Summary of why families end up in court. Family disagreements are more common than we think. I have had many families come to my office saying, we're embarrassed. We have to talk to you about this. We know you'll never believe this. I do believe it. I've experienced it with so many clients. We have to initiate that elephant in the room discussion to talk about family situations to avoid future problems. If you find yourself in a family situation where you have concerns about abuse of elderly parents, take action to stop the abuse. Your elderly parent relies on you. They expect you to step up. In some cases, there's no one else to do it. If you notice it in elderly living out in the community, who may have family living at a distance, who may not have family or anybody to take care of them, make a report. You could be saving someone's life. You could be doing something really good to help another person who has no one to help or watch out for themselves. I'm Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker. I'll see you in the next webinar.